Hi, this is Kamera. My first few minutes with God, day number 267, Esther chapter 6 through chapter 10. So that's 5 chapters. That night, the king had trouble sleeping. So he sent for his book of the history of his reign. And as he read those books, he discovered that Mordecai had not been rewarded or recognized for exposing the eunuchs who had plotted to assassinate him. During this time, Haman was in the outer court. He was on his way to ask the king's permission to have Mordecai impaled. The king says for Haman, asks him, how should he honor the man who pleases him? Haman believed it to be himself, so he tells the king that he should have his most noblest man robe this man in the king's robe, dress him in the king's robe, parade him around the city square on the king's horse, and just proclaim this is what the king does to the man who pleases him. So the king loves it. And so he tells Haman to do this for Mordecai. So Haman, he does it. He does what the king says. And afterwards, he hurries home humiliated. He cries to his wife and his advisors. They tell him, you need to leave Mordecai alone. He is a Jew and nothing good can come of this. It can lead to fatality. Isn't that something? So fast forward, the king and Haman, now they're at this banquet that Esther had thrown for them. And so the king asked Esther again, what is it that you would like? I will give you anything, even half my kingdom. She tells him to spare the lives of her and her people. And she tells them that they've been sold and will be killed, slaughtered, and annihilated. King is angry and he demands by whom? And she says, this wicked man Haman. Haman did not see that coming. He is deathly pale, petrified. The king is enraged and he has Haman killed. He has him impaled on the sharpened pole Haman had built for Mordecai. That same day, the king gives Haman property to Esther. Esther appoints Mordecai to manage his property. Esther, she lets the king know who Mordecai is as far as how they're related. The king, he gives the signet ring that he had taken from Haman. He gives that to Mordecai. So Esther, she visits the king again and she falls to his feet. Of course, he raises the scepter. She's safe. She begs him. She begs him to reverse the decree that would have her people killed. The king tells Esther and Mordecai that once a decree has been made in the king's name and sealed with his signet ring, it cannot be revoked. And so, what he does is he tells Mordecai to take that signet ring, write up a whole new decree in the king's name, and whatever he has written, they'll go along with that. So Mordecai, what he did was he stated in this decree that on March 7, the Jews are allowed to defend themselves and their families. They were authorized to kill, slaughter, annihilate anyone who tries to attack them and their families. And they were allowed to take the properties of their enemies. The people, they celebrated as they heard this news. Many people even became Jews because they feared what the Jews would do to them. Mordecai, he was promoted in the palace and his fame spread. He became more and more powerful. On March 7th, there was 2 decrees that were put into effect. The enemies of the Jews, they thought they could overpower the Jews, but the Jews instead overpowered them. Isn't that something? The Jews, they killed over 75,000 enemies. These are people who were enemies of the Jews. They killed 75,000. They didn't take any plunder. They just basically defend themselves and killed their enemies. And Susa, where the palace was located, There were 800 enemies killed, and the 10 sons of Haman, they were killed and impaled as well. So there were 2 days that were dedicated to this decree. There was the seventh, which was throughout the entire province, and Esther had requested an eighth day as well, and that was just for Susa. So Mordecai, he made this into a public holiday. He recorded these events and told the Jews to celebrate these 2 days as an annual festival. He said there should be a day of of giving gifts of food to each other, to celebrate with food, and it should be a time to commemorate a time when the Jews gained relief from their enemies. Sorrows turned to gladness, mourning turned to joy, and this is to be a day of Purim, the celebration. The Jews accepted this holiday. They agreed to celebrate this. And Queen Esther, she backed Mordecai. And she established this as the festival of Purim. Mordecai became prime minister, and his authority was next to King Xerxes. He was very great among the Jews, and he was held in high esteem because he worked for the good of the people. He even spoke up for their descendants, the welfare of their descendants. But there you have it, guys. That's day number 267, Esther chapter 6 through chapter 10. You have a God-filled blessed day.